I'm gonna overcomplicate the Xbox by redesigning a brand new console, new controllers, and 2 new games to go with it. So first, let's open Photoshop and make a new document. But I need a clean plate of the Xbox, so I found this image and I'm gonna remove the bottom part. Now I'm gonna remove the CD import and save a copy of it for later, but for now, let's just blend it in with the rest of the console. I'm also gonna go over here and remove the Xbox logo because this is my design, and I'm calling it the J box because I'm gonna turn this into the shape of a J, kind of. You'll see in a second, okay? But for now, I'm gonna change the color from white to a darker gray and then duplicate the entire thing. And then change the perspective to make it look more connected to the other half. After connecting it and making it look good, I feel like it's kind of long, so I'm gonna make it a little shorter on the left side. Now that we have the base of the console, we need to add back the CD import. So I unhid the layer we saved earlier and put it on the left side of the console, but I'm just gonna make another one, because why not? You know what I mean? Why not have 2 games plugged in at the same time? What does that hurt? And below the CD input, usually there's a USB input, so I'm gonna add one of those that has 2, but I'm gonna duplicate that as well, so now we have 4. And beside those, for some reason, I'm just gonna add an extra HDMI input because, you know, we do it different at Jord Industries, okay? No one does it like us. But we need a button for connecting the controllers that we'll make later, like the Xbox has. So let's make a little circle, and then I'll go into the layer styles and add a bevel and emboss. But I also want a button to reset the console straight from the outside, so I'll duplicate that button we just made and then add a dash between them and then some text above them so it tells you what it does. I also noticed we forgot the CD buttons to, you know, take out the CDs, so let's add those too. But now we need something to replace the Xbox button, and I made my own logo for the J box. And I think it looks pretty cool because if you flip the logo, there's still a J. Xbox just put a fucking circle and an X, all right? That's not that impressive either, okay? So let's add this new logo to the right side of our console, just like the Xbox. And I'll add a little bit of glow to make it look like it's turned on. This part of the console is going to be where you charge the controllers. So let's work on making some charging ports. But first, I'm just going to go over here and add some LED lights to indicate how charged the controllers are. And I'll make 2 of those and label them left and right so we can know which controllers they go to. This next part I'm going to create, you might not understand what I'm doing, but I'm making a slot to insert the controllers into. So first, I'm going to make this rectangle to the side and angle it to look like it's even with the rest of the console, like this. Now let's go to the layer styles and add a dark color overlay and a white inner shadow to make it look like it's going inside the console. I'm gonna add a small rounded rectangle and line it up with the console, but now I'll add a black inner shadow to that and remove the part that makes it look like it's on the outside. After that, I'll just copy and paste another one of those, and now it looks like a plugin. So let's just make another one and correct the angles. And now the console is done. But we can't play on this beautiful console without controllers. And I want to take it all the way back to 2006 when the Wii was introduced. But this is kind of outdated, and I feel like a newer version would kind of look like an Apple TV remote. So I'm just going to take one of those and grab an Xbox controller for a reference. First, I need to use generative fill to remove these buttons. And now that they're gone, let's make our own buttons. So I made a circle and then added a bevel and emboss to make it look more 3D. And then I'll just copy this layer and paste it 3 more times. Now let's put an A on the first button, just like the Xbox. And then I'll do the same with the B. But here's where I'm gonna change things up a little bit because I have no idea why there's a Y there. I'm gonna make it a C. So it's like A, B, C. On the other hand, the X does make sense because it's called the Xbox, which... Okay, wait, no, I think I might realize why the Y is there. But I don't care, okay? I'm changing the X to a J because this is the J box. I'm gonna move the buttons down a little bit so I can add another button on top of it. And this button is gonna be a start or a pause button because I don't have that yet. But for the bottom half of the controller, obviously, I'm gonna add an analog stick. And I'm just gonna take this straight from the reference. But if you look at the actual controller, it kind of has a ring around the stick. And that's because it's not actually flat there. So I'm gonna do the same thing with my design to give it more depth and make it more realistic. At the bottom of the controller, I'm gonna add an LED indicator so we know how much it's charged. Now I'll just copy this and move it to the side. Then I'll change the text on the bottom to left, and then I'll add another analog stick. But this time I'm gonna put it on the top half because that's kind of how Xbox does it. I'm gonna add a button on the top of the controller for clipping or recording gameplay. Then I'll add this D-pad on the bottom half of the controller. I like having the blank space down here because if you have custom controllers, you can have cooler designs, you can see them better. But I don't really like this blank space. So let's add another button that takes you to the home page, kind of like the main Xbox button, because we don't have that yet. But now that we have the console and the controller set up, we need some actual games to play. So I'm gonna create 2 games, and one of them is gonna be a remake of another popular game, and the other will be a J-Box exclusive. But for this first game, we're gonna recreate 2K25. I have this Jersey font that I downloaded because I download a lot of random fonts, but obviously J-Box does not have the license to use the NBA, so I'm gonna have to recreate the NBA logo too. Now let's add our logo back into the other image and rename the game to 2J25, which doesn't really make sense, but we don't have a license to use 2K's name either. I got this Photoshop file of a black guy dunking a basketball, and this file lets me change the color of his outfit, so this is what I ended up doing. So let's add our black guy into the cover photo, and then let's add this basketball hoop background behind him. This picture does not line up with the aspect ratios of the bodies and everything, so let's make some changes by comparing the balls. See, I'm not even gonna say pause, actually. I used generative fill to fill in the rest of the background, and then added a camera raw filter to add some light. But I also wanna add some texture and then make the colors stand out more. I need to add some shadows and highlights to our subject to make him stand out more, but also to match the background light. So I'll just use the brush tool and go around the edges of our black guy and add some whites for highlights or blacks for shadows. Now I'll add a camera raw filter to add some texture, brightness, saturation, and film grain to match with the background. Let's unhide the text layer and then put it behind the subject for a cooler effect. So this is the remake of 2K25 by the J-Box. But we also have an exclusive game. So my idea for the game is it's kind of like Only Up or Chained Together, where you have to get higher and higher and try not to fall. So for the background, I think we should have some clouds and a blue sky. And then I want to make the character jumping from a cloud onto another cloud with some text above it saying the title. And for a title, I looked up some synonyms for jumping and I saw the word ascend, and I think that sounds pretty cool. So let's go with that. First, I'm going to add a blue gradient that gets darker as it goes up. And now I'll add some clouds. Okay, I found this picture on the internet. Okay, I know it's not the best looking character, but I think it's pretty funny. So I'm just gonna cut out this guy and then try to make him look better. So after I put the character in position, I decided to make him brown, like me. And then I'll give him a fat ass. And speaking of fat asses, don't forget to subscribe and check out my Instagram where I posted this picture. And I know that everyone's looking at my ass, all right? Anyways, I broke some of his bones, but only to put him in a better position. And then I gave him a fresh cut. But my bro is still naked, all right? So let's give him some clothes. So let's color in a red shirt. Damn. Oh, we gotta give bro some pants, all right? So I'm gonna use the hue and saturation tool to just color in some green pants. I'm also gonna add some socks so my bro doesn't end up on wiki feet. And now I'll add some shadows on the clouds. I also added some highlights and shadows to make the character stand out more, but now let's make the title. I found this random font that I have because, once again, I download a lot of random fonts, but I thought it looked pretty cool. So I'm gonna add a bevel and emboss and then make it look gold. I'll also add some clouds behind it to make it look better, and then I'll duplicate the character and change the color of his clothes and then add him on top of the title, making it look like he's jumping. So let me know in the comments, which game would you rather play? That's it for today's video, but maybe you'll like one of these videos that YouTube thinks you'll enjoy.